Hello Newborn Nation, Newbornkilik here, welcoming you back to another theory about our favorite childhood video games. Today we're going to be covering a theory that may actually link Super Mario 64 and Luigi's Mansion together. Bear in mind these are just ideas that I've been rolling around in my head, and I fully understand that is such a strange idea to try and link these two games together, but hear me out on this one. I think once you hear the relation between King Boo and Bowser, and kind of their partner in crime style of approaching situations, I think maybe it'll make a little bit more sense. So first off, we need to talk about Luigi's Mansion, and for those of you that don't know, the premise of Luigi's Mansion is Luigi ends up winning a mansion in a contest that he never entered, which basically sounds like the equivalent of one of those spam calls that you get, like, win a paradise vacation or something, but so he goes, and Mario and Luigi decide to meet up at the mansion to celebrate his apparent free mansion. But uh-oh, guess what? It was a trap. Big surprise on that one, I suppose. But one of the things that in the game is never really explained is how Mario was captured. It's kind of assumed that he couldn't really handle all of the boos. You know, probably they all ganged up on him and placed him into the painting, or however that happened exactly. But he didn't have really a way to defend himself. However, he's been known to just traipse through boo houses on a regular basis. So what makes this one so much different? Well, what if I told you that the mansion from Luigi's Mansion is actually Big Boo's haunt from Super Mario 64? Think of it this way. Big Boo's haunt is the only level in Super Mario 64 you have to defeat an enemy to get to, let alone a boo. You know, the ghosts that actually work with King Boo. But the real question here is, why in the world would King Boo even care about Mario at all? Well, my friends, we don't have to look any further than Super Mario World for that answer. In Super Mario World, Mario is constantly running through boo houses, breaking blocks, and just in general trespassing on this probably sacred land to these ghosts. When you think about the most stereotypical ghosts, they really don't enjoy when people are doing anything near anything of theirs. So after a few of these houses, King Boo takes notice and says, I'm gonna get this Mario guy. He's trespassing, he's disrespecting our property, we're gonna get him. It's at this point he makes a very interesting alliance with a man you might know by the name of Bowser. Hey, guess what? I have a hate for Mario, you also have a hate for Mario. Let's combine our hates for Mario and see if we can't get something done here. And it is in this alliance between Bowser and King Boo that you are allowed to fight Bowser 3 times. If you are familiar with the events of Luigi's Mansion, you would know that King Boo has some magical abilities. I guess I shouldn't say some magical abilities, but actually very powerful magic abilities. He has been known to materialize things out of thin air. In certain instances, he's even kind of been known to make people around him hallucinate. Think the last fight in Luigi's Mansion, how kind of psychedelic everything is. Maybe more a trick of the mind than anything else, but still pretty impressive nonetheless. And in Luigi's Mansion 2, he is shown to be able to actually use the power of objects around him, given the stone on his crown, playing a relatively important part as a power source in the game. With this information, it wouldn't be too strange to assume that he could actually use the power of the Power Stars, allowing him to far overclock his already potent magical abilities. Spoiler alert, in case anyone doesn't know about Luigi's Mansion, at the end of Luigi's Mansion, you actually don't fight Bowser, you fight King Boo in a Bowser suit. Even though certain points in the game heavily hint at the fact that you're probably going to fight Bowser at the end of it. If Bowser's off dealing with Princess Peach in Super Mario 64, this would explain why he doesn't appear here. Although he is used as a scare tactic to hopefully frighten Luigi, making the fight all that much easier for King Boo. When you couple this information with some of the more popular theories about King Boo, such as that Bowser and King Boo may actually be the same entity, however, King Boo is basically Bowser after his death. And the evidence to support that is the fact that in Super Mario 64, the sound effect for the boo in that game was actually just Bowser's laugh, played much quicker than normal. There's also another fairly popular theory floating around, and that is that every time Bowser technically dies to Mario, it's actually King Boo that's resurrecting him, allowing him to carry on hunting down this common enemy of theirs. Although you may be asking me, how in the world does all this tie into Super Mario 64? Well, bear in mind that in the first 2 Bowser fights, Bowser can only take 1 bomb hit before going down. However, in the third one, he actually takes 3. Personally, I believe this is because the first two Bowsers you fight are not the real Bowser, and the third one is. The first two are actually just clones or copies or illusions of Bowser created by King Boo. Naturally, the actual Bowser would be much tougher than any kind of clones or illusions, so that would explain why he would take 3 hits instead of just 1. So now that we've mentioned how King Boo might be related to the events of Super Mario 64, let's take a look at how that relates to our theory of Mario being trapped in Big Boo's haunt and Luigi's mansion taking place during Super Mario 64. Well, we've already covered the fact that the entrance of Big Boo's haunt is actually inside of a Boo, which is quite strange. There are other instances where you look up into the sky or jump into a hole, but you never find one inside of an enemy. Second, if you look at the outside of these mansions, they are somewhat similar, but that won't necessarily be the biggest driving factor, as it's just a pretty cool style of mansion, to be completely honest. Now, that is where the similarities between the two mansions basically end. But the idea isn't that they're necessarily the same mansion even. Bear in mind, King Boo actually created the mansion in Luigi's mansion, as we learn from Professor Egad. So, you believe the mansion actually exists then? Strange. I've been living here since I was a lad of 20 or so, and I'll tell you, that mansion appeared just a few days ago. So, King Boo creates his own little pocket dimension in the form of a mansion, luring Mario in with the promise of what else but Power Stars, the entire point of Super Mario 64. From that moment until Luigi comes to rescue him, Mario is trapped inside of this pocket dimension. After all, we never get to see what it's like inside of Mario's painting in Luigi's mansion. And it's kind of an interesting little point here, but when Mario leaves Big Boo's haunt, he doesn't actually leave from where he entered, he leaves from the statue. You know, that star statue in the courtyard that basically taunted all of us as kids with, oh, run around this 1,000 times or whatever. But the point is that he doesn't actually leave from the level, kind of implying that he's not really leaving the level so much as being let back into his own game. And that is truly something to think about. I mean, if we look at the events of Super Mario Sunshine, we can actually see sometimes that Mario gets his FLUDD taken from him in the transition period between levels, giving us reason to believe that maybe there's quite a bit of travel time, and that he's maybe not exactly as safe in that area as we may think that he is. I mean, it could be as simple as that maybe King Boo captured Mario in this transition period between, Super Mario 64 world and Big Boo's haunt. So anyway, there you have it, my reasoning for why Super Mario 64 might be on kind of a delay so that Luigi's Mansion can actually happen. Let me know what you think of this theory down below. If you have any input, or if I happen to have missed anything, be sure to let me know. Really quick, I'd like to give a shout out to my patrons, George Kasner III, Mark Comer, and Emai. They have been so gracious as to support me on Patreon. I greatly appreciate it. If you would like to join them in supporting me while I make awesome content for all of you, you can head over to my Patreon. There will be a link below or hopefully on screen here pretty soon. And hey, you might even get yourself a shout out at the end of the video. Anyway, I'm Newbornkilik and I will see you in the next one. I'm out.